What's up, everybody? It's Sergio here with 8Z Real Estate, and I had the chance to sit down with one of my closest mentors and friends, Jung Park, with Life ROI. And Jung shared his story about coming over to the United States as an immigrant from Korea, the challenges he faced not only in business, but also in entrepreneurship when he started to grow his own companies. And Jung and I had the opportunity to meet for the very first time when I was a student getting my master's at CU Denver. And then again, I got to take his class earlier this year, his Life ROI class, which is all about personal branding and making sure you're doing the things in your life that adds value and happiness. And I got to do that with my dad. It was a pretty incredible experience. So take a quick moment and check out the clip. Just like your background and your story.
Yeah.
Right? Like, where did you come from? Like, how did you get to Colorado?
Right. Oh, 1984. My father was already living in New York. He'd been here about 2 years, and he was working to get us over. There was nothing wrong. We weren't fleeing anything terrible back in Korea, but it was academically challenging, right? Because we would go to school 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. We'd be at school from 7 o'clock. So as a 7th grader, I was at school by 7 o'clock in the morning. School officially ended at 5 p.m.
Okay.
But then we had independent study. There was nothing independent about it. It was required. It was mandatory. And we'd be locked up in there until 10 o'clock at night, working on homework, studying. And we did that 6 days a week. On Saturdays, we had a break because we would get out around 3. We had like 14 subjects to study from, study for. My class was small, on the smaller end. It had like 70 kids in it.
Wow.
Right? So if you're not top 1% of your entire school in high school, you don't even get into a decent college. And if you don't get into college, there's no future for you, right? So I did great in elementary school. Things came easy. I was class president a few times, vice president, straight A's. And I fucked around too. Right?
Yeah.
I was that kid where my teachers will come to my mother and go, I've never experienced this. Your son's smart, and yet he screws up more than any of the other kids in class. I don't know how many times I almost got expelled, I got suspended. And looking back, that was because things came easy and I got bored. Mm-hmm. So I would fuck around. But my grades started slipping in junior high school in 7th grade because I wasn't. Stuff got harder. There was more stuff to study for, and me just skimming through six grades in elementary school wasn't going to get me by.
Right.
In 7th grade.
Right.
So reality hit. So instead of being top of the class, now I was within maybe top 10, top 20.
Okay.
Which was very disappointing for both my parents and I. Anyway, so long story short, my mother decided, you know what, it ain't gonna work out here, and I also don't want to put my kids through this because she's went through it as well.
Right.
She studied her ass off and all that stuff. So they decided my dad would come here first. He came here with a business partner. They started a business, and they were gonna sponsor us, and we'll join them. So in 1984, we landed at JFK. It was like 11:30 at night. My mother, my sister, and my father picked us up in a beat up blue Chevy station wagon that he used to deliver fish, so he stunk. I mean, that was how we got here.
Yeah.
And that was back in 1984. So we lived in Ridgewood, Queens for a few years, and then that's where I went to back to elementary school because not being able to speak the language was a learning disability, so I repeated 6th grade.
Okay.
Long story short, I graduated from elementary school and junior high school in Queens, went down to Brooklyn, freshman in high school when I started high school in Manhattan. Went to college there.
Okay.
In my 2nd year of college, my mother witnessed my dad getting robbed at a gunpoint. It's happened before, but my father never shared anything, especially something like that, because he was scared the crap out of my mother.
Yeah.
So my mother wasn't working in the back. They ran a tiny little fast food restaurant where everything was fried, right? Fried fish, fried chicken, you name it. And it was on Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Not the nicest neighborhood. So they had just opened up. My father was getting the register ready and getting ready in the front. My mother was in the back in the kitchen getting ready, and the guy came in. My father didn't even look up. He said, "We're not open yet." Before he knew it, he had a gun, against his forehead, asking for money. Now, my father spent a long time in the military, so he remained calm. Right? He handed over the cash, and as he was handing over the cash, my mother happened to peek around the corner and saw the barrel of the gun on my father's forehead. And it's amazing how this little tiny woman, who should have freaked out, remained calm, went back into the kitchen, because I had some extra cash back there.
Yeah.
She was socking it away in the walk-in freezer, because she was afraid the guy was going to come back and take that money too.
Right.
Anyway, both of them remained calm, made it through it. The guy took the money and ran, which is the best thing that could happen. But my mother told my father, I said, this is it. This is not part of the American dream that I signed up for. Especially when my father said that wasn't the first time, right? Mm-hmm. She said, there's got to be a better way. I'm sick of this, right? Because they really did work their asses off in the roughest parts of Brooklyn.
Right.
This was their second restaurant. So they decided to sell the thing. They did. And they both took a break. My mother came out to Colorado to visit a childhood friend of ours. And like every other Korean businessman here, my mother's friend was married to a guy who was running a liquor store. So it was either liquor store or dry cleaners. Yeah. And this guy was running a liquor store in your neighborhood, Sloan's Lake.
Okay.
Edgewater Liquors, right there in front of the post office.
Absolutely.
Yep. So my mother came out.
I bought a couple drinks from there.
The guy sold a long time ago, and I actually worked there too. But so my mother came out to visit. She fell in love with the sky and the mountains. People are nice.
Yeah.
80% of Korea is made up of mountains, right? Even in the heart of the city, we got mountains everywhere.
Okay.
So she saw something friendly and familiar. So when she came back to Brooklyn, she said, "We're moving. We're gonna go start a business out there. We'll figure it out when we get there." Now, as intelligent and hardworking as my parents are, I still felt like I was sending, for the first time, I felt like I was sending my kids out to the war front, and that their English wasn't great.
Right.
So in New York, you have a lot more resources to tap into. Over here, the Korean community is really tiny. So I said, I'm going to take a year from school. I'm going to put in a request for leave of absence for a year, and I'll come out and I'll help you set up. I'll help you set up.
You took a pause from college to come out here and help your parents. How old were you when you did that?
20,
21? Wow.
Something like that.
Okay.
So actually 21. I had just turned 21.
Okay.
So we came out just to see. So we drove out my dad's Chevy Lumina. It was amazing that he actually made it here. So we got out here, the three of us, looked around, and felt like this was the right thing. We went back, and my sister was going to stay because she was just starting college.
Yeah.
So she was to stay in Brooklyn. So we packed up everything, moved her into her apartment. Just so happens that a friend of my parents, they were moving to Seattle as well.
Okay.
There were some New Yorkers, especially in the Korean community, that was fleeing New York in the sense that they got tired of the hustle and bustle. They wanted a better life.
Yep.
Right? That family was going to Seattle. So we rented one U-Haul truck, the biggest one they had. Mm-hmm. Our friends packed up their stuff first. Then we packed up our stuff because we were getting off first. And then I was driving the Lumina with my mother, my father's friend's wife, and their kids. And as I was driving the Lumina behind the U-Haul, and the U-Haul was being driven by my father and his buddy. So it took us 3 days to get out here. We unloaded, they left to Seattle, and we stayed. So that was back in 1993.
Okay.
Summer of 93. So I was 22. I had just turned 22. And we're looking at businesses. One business that they were going to actually go through with was a drugstore / convenience store in 5 Points.
Okay.
And I remember when we first got here, everyone said, "You better not go to 5 Points." I said it was terrible. It was the ghettos of ghettos. We went. We thought it was nice.
That was my thing too when I moved out here from Jersey, and
Yeah.
then Texas is what it is. not saying that there's not parts of Colorado that are different than others, but like a ghetto in New York versus a ghetto in Colorado are two very different things.
Very different things.
And like the perception of people here versus you probably came out, you're like, this is great, like you just said.
Great. It was great.
Because it's, I mean, which is my point. Because I saw the same thing. I was like, I don't think so, guys. Like it could be. I mean, I'm sure there's crime.
Sure.
But it's not like. So.
Absolutely not. And they're talking about projects. I go, projects?
Yeah.
I didn't see no projects. They're like, those buildings. I go, those buildings got patios and lawns in the front. Anyway, so that we're going through the process of buying the business. Fell through. Didn't work out. So my parents were considering moving back. At that time, I had one friend here that I met at the liquor store. This little skinny black guy who nodded "what's up" when I was visiting my mom's friend. We just started talking. And he said, "You're a single guy, you're out here, I'll show you around." So he was showing me around. And he happened to show me this place next to Casa Bonita.
Okay.
It was called Allegandi's back in them days.
Okay.
They had jewelry, they had art. It was gallery/jewelry store. And this guy says, "They got really attractive young ladies there. Why don't we go check it out?" So one day we did. And he was pointing to this one particular girl that he wanted me to talk to. Nothing upstairs, this girl, dumb as a rock. So got out of the conversation, started talking to the owner because the owner was from Brooklyn.
Oh.
So he was a black guy, black gentleman from Brooklyn. So we started talking. He had lived out here forever though. And then this little brunette, this little cute brunette was in the back eavesdropping to our conversation. And when we finally got done, she asked, "You're from New York?" I go, "Yeah." She had just gotten back from New York on a trip with her best friend. She's never been there before, so we started talking about New York. And she goes, "You know anybody around here?" I go, "Just that skinny black guy, that's it." She goes, "I'll show you around." So she gave me a number.
Yeah.
And then that night I called her and we were on the phone for like 3 hours talking about all kinds of stuff. And she had offered me a job. She was a manager of that place and she goes, "You know, if you need a job, we could always use part-time." So she actually gave me a job part-time. And when my sister flew out during Christmas break that year, and 3 of them decided, you know what, it ain't working out. So my parents said, "We're driving back to New York with my sister first of the year. What do you want to do?" I go, "I think I want to stick around." I mean, I took a year off.
Yeah.
I'm 6 months into this brand new city. I've never been in a place like this.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, anything west of Jersey is Wild West.
Horses and
yeah,
Frontierland.
right? So
Right.
this was fascinating for me. So I said, "I got a part-time job. I'll get other part-time jobs or whatever. I'll support myself. Let me enjoy it for 6 months. Then I'll come back." So they ended up going back. But right before they ended up going back, I went on a date with the manager that hired me, which is not a good idea, right? To dip into Company Inc.
Right.
But she said she was giving me a hard time about not knowing how to drive a stick shift.
Yeah.
So I learned how to drive in New York, and no one in their right minds would drive a freaking manual transmission.
On that traffic.
Right? So she was giving me a hard time. She said, I'll teach you how. So that was our first date. So we went on our first date. Went well. And I told my parents, I go, "Yeah, I'm definitely sticking around. I like this girl." 8 months later, we're married. And that was 25 years ago. Yeah.
Holy shit.
So I still work for her.
Yeah.
Full time.
Yeah.
Some benefits.
Yeah. Wow.
So that's how I ended up here. It was because my parents wanted to start a business out here because they got sick and tired of the crime. Things didn't work out. So they ended up moving back. I stayed because I had a part-time job. I wanted to literally mess around and have fun for 6 months.
Right.
And meet a girl, fell in love, and got married. And that's how I got tied to Colorado.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Known you for 5 years now. I had no idea. That's a great story.
I don't put that on my bio or nothing.
Yeah, I mean, of course. Wow. So then, so you stay here, and then we met through the MBA program at CU Denver. So, but you also graduated from there as well.
Right, but that was my MBA. So after I got married in '94, I told my wife, "Listen, we got to go back to New York."
Okay.
Together, because I was working like 3 part-time jobs.
Yeah.
Just to pay the bills. It was hard. And I said, now that I've done this, I'm gonna go back and finish my degree.
Okay.
I was at Parsons, which is a well-renowned design school, and I said, it's one of the top design schools in the country, not even in the world, and I'm not gonna miss that opportunity. I don't wanna work my ass off just to pay the bills.
Right.
So I'm gonna go back and finish school. Are you coming? She's never lived out of her mom's house until she got married to me, let alone live in a different state or a city like New York.
Right.
So that was I think first big fight we had because she didn't want to go.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not staying. So we can try the long distance thing, but I'm going.
Yeah, you had to finish it up.
You're not holding me back, and this is for both of us. It's not just for me.
Right.
Right. So took some convincing, but she said, yeah, I'll go. And at the time, she was taking one class at a time at Arapahoe Community College, paying through her own way. That's one of the reasons why I loved her so much, because she was so damn independent. So I said, we'll have the opportunity for you to finish undergrad too, but as a regular student, full time, because my parents will help us out. So we went back and we lived with my parents, for 2 years.
Okay.
Until I finished, until she finished. And I don't know, till this day, I don't know how they supported us. Because at this time, they were running a deli in Irvington, New Jersey. There's nothing in New York worked out, so they ended up buying a business in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Irvington, which again was a ghetto, not that great of a neighborhood. So they were running a deli there, just two of them with a Mexican girl, and they were working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day, supporting me, my wife, and my sister, all three of us going to college. Anyway, so I graduated early. I squid everything in, so 21 credits a semester. I graduated one semester early to save my parents some money. And then I started working, and my wife decided she was going to go get a master's at NYU, and she got a half ride. So she got scholarships to pay for half of it, which was awesome. So while she was going to school, we moved out on our own because I got a job, started working at a design firm. First time and the last time I ever got fired. Got a job at an advertising agency, working there, and then I got scouted to a startup. Back in them days, to call it the .com company.
Yep.
It was a web solution agency.
Okay.
This was mid-90s, late 90s, so website, internet was a brand new thing. Went to work for that company, 60 people when I joined. Within 3 years, it went 1,800 global, went public, crazy growth. And that company was opening up an office here in Denver. So in the central region, we had San Antonio and Dallas. Mm-hmm. We had a bunch of offices in California, but we didn't really have any presence here. And back in them days, they had a company called Corporate Express up in Broomfield.
Okay.
So that was our first multi-million-dollar client. So I was sent out to manage the central region and start the Denver office to service that client.
Okay.
So I came out in 2000. Company paid for it. I came out, I was making a good six-figure salary back in, that was in 1999.
Wow.
Right? Running 3 different offices, taking care of the best client and the biggest client we had.
Did you enjoy that?
I fucking loved it.
Nice.
I loved it. And before the move, I would fly out Sunday to Denver and then go to Dallas before coming back to Jersey every week.
So you're on a constant rotation of those 3 areas and then going back to
Jersey. Yep.
Okay.
So I'll be home Friday afternoon, Saturday, and then Sunday I'll be out again because I was managing multiple offices and this client. And we were all making shit up as we went, which I loved. And I worked for a guy named Brian Van Dyke, who came from the Big Five back in them days, who really schooled me on relationships, client management, project management. And he's like the older brother my mother never gave me. So I loved working for him. He gave me autonomy to figure things out. And in some ways, we didn't have those terms back then, but what I was doing was very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Because I had the safety net of the company, but we were making shit up as we went. Because we've never done this before.
You were the first person to turn me on to the term entrepreneurial, right? Like when we were in that class. Because when you're in that situation and you can create things and you're working autonomously, it's almost like you're running your own business.
It is.
And that's a blast.
It's thrilling.
I can see why.
It was thrilling because not to this day, I mean, up to that point, because everything was so new with internet, and web businesses, no one really knew how to make money. Amazon was still losing money back then.
Right.
So we were all trying to figure this out as we went, and that was thrilling. And I got to manage 60 plus people and the clients, and it was awesome. But like all good things, .bomb happened.
Yeah.
Right. So the holding company that owned us, the service arm, decided they're going to pull all the cash out of all the businesses they had in their portfolio and just focus on one, which happened to be XM Radio, which was a right decision for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Not for
Not
us.
for you.
It sucked.
Yeah.
So by this point, my parents had moved out to join me.
Okay.
Because I'm the oldest son and the only son.
Mm-hmm.
And in our culture, they go where I go because I'm their retirement plan.
Gotcha.
Not just financially speaking, but mental support,
right.
Emotional support, which I embrace. So they had sold their business in Jersey. I flew out, helped them drive a U-Haul for the second time, back out here. My sister had, I think, graduated, and she said, hey, I'll give Denver a try too. So she had moved out with them. Anyway, so that's how I got back.
Okay.
.bomb was unemployed for 6-8 months. I did anything and everything I could. I did tile work. I did construction work. I built these screens in my bathroom to do silk screening, to design and print T-shirts. Back in them days, you didn't have these fancy online businesses where you can just send in the artwork and get it done.
Right.
I had to burn the silk screens myself, buy a special lamp for it, and run the paint. So I did what I could.
So, okay. Your parents tried to buy a business here. They bought a business out there. They're obviously entrepreneurs.
Yep.
You were working this 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Very entrepreneurial, right? Like a lot of entrepreneurial tendencies.
Right.
Then that whole thing happens, right? We have the burst or the
.bomb.
.bomb, thank you. And now you're doing all this entrepreneurial work. You're just trying to make a business.
Just trying to hustle.
Is that when you realized that you wanted to do your own thing? No.
I mean, I was just trying to survive. I didn't think that I was going to start a business.
Do you feel like you learned a lot at that point that maybe later on you're like,
oh, absolutely. Because I would print these things, right? I'm thinking, I'm a designer. I know how to design things.
Right.
So I designed things. No one wanted to buy them. I'm like, you don't get it? They didn't give a shit. So that's when I learned the hard lesson of just because you build it doesn't mean they're going to come.
Yeah.
Right?
So this isn't Field of Dreams.
Yeah, it isn't.
Right.
I never bothered to ask, what is it that you want to see on a t-shirt?
Right.
I just thought what I thought would be cool. So I was just trying to survive, pay the bills. Because my wife she did get a job, thank goodness. She was working as a high school guidance counselor, which barely paid her rent, obviously. So I was trying to hustle, collecting unemployment, trying to just put food on the table. My parents had opened up a deli here.
Okay.
That was the first failure that my mother ever had in her life. Business failed miserably.
Interesting.
Because they also opened the day before 9/11.
Oh my gosh.
You talk about the shitstorms that was happening. So anyway, so it was really tough time for us. I ended up getting a job at a local firm.
Okay.
First private company I ever worked for. It was a branding agency. And first time I experienced professional racism to my face and behind my back and under the skin and all different ways you can imagine. So within a week of starting that job, which I also took a 50% pay cut, because the founder who hired me behind everyone's back, he had officially retired, but he showed up to the office every day.
Interesting.
And he was handing it down to his son and his son-in-law.
Yeah.
And he hired me without those two guys ever knowing. And he hired me to be the changing agent in the company, to turn the company around with their processes and profit margins and all this stuff. But he didn't bother telling the two guys that were supposed to run the company for him. So within a week, I realized, what the hell did I get myself into? But I had to finish out a year, right? That's the mindset. Somehow we're all ingrained into believing that's what you're supposed to do.
What is the phrase? Well, I say this a lot. I don't know if it's a phrase. I'm just shooting from the hip at this point. You can do anything for a year. That's how I talked myself into deploying. I was like, I can do anything for 8 months. That is definitely, you can. You're going to be miserable.
Yes. And that's the first time where my body freaked out. So probably 6-7 months in, It was a Friday. Came home, shitty work week, and I was watching ESPN Sports Center. Like around 8 o'clock at night, my neck started hurting a little bit of pain. 2 hours later, my neck was cocked over like this. I couldn't move. So from my waist up, from my left side, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move. Instead of going to the doctor, I'm thinking, I'll sleep it off. Didn't work. So by Monday, I finally got in with an acupuncturist.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to go to a doctor and get a bunch of stupid pain medicine. And the guy goes, yeah, I've never done this before, but this is what is going to be required. He goes, I'm going to put a needle on your neck, back of your neck. And if I put it in the wrong spot, I can kill you or paralyze you forever. I go, that doesn't sound good. Is there any other way? He goes, no. You're so freaking stressed out. Your body's freaking out. We're going to correct this. Your chi is being blocked and rerouted in so many different ways. We're going to correct this.
Yeah.
So he did that, got better instantly from me literally being able to straighten my neck out.
Wow.
And then he put me on an herbal therapy for, I think, 2 months. But I knew I had to leave that company a week in. I just needed to buy time to stick it out.
Yeah.
So I somehow stuck it out for a year. And the excuse I gave the old man is, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to get my MBA, which was the truth, but also it was a fluffy version of the truth, because I didn't want to tell a 70-year-old guy, I respect you as a businessman, but I don't respect you as a businessman in that you're allowing nepotism to ruin your company.
Yeah.
I wouldn't tell him the truth, but I don't think he would actually listen anyway. So,
And who knows how, I mean, and it'd be interesting to hear what your thoughts are. Like, you never want to, there may be time to burn a bridge, but like at the end of the day, you voicing that opinion, I bet you if you had said that, you would have walked out and probably felt good, and then a day later probably felt worse.
Yep. Because there's no benefit that was going to come my way, other
Right.
than the instant satisfaction of I'm going to tell you how it is, but that would have lasted until I got into the car and leave, and that would have been it.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's been plenty of times I've wanted to walk out of a job and give the guy the double bird.
Sure.
Right. And
right.
I don't think I've done it. I got close. I'm glad I didn't. So you're right. There is no benefit.
I've done that earlier this year.
You gave
But
a double bird?
Yes, but there is a way to do a double bird in a politically correct,
Gotcha.
completely ethical way of doing it.
Right.
So the lesson I've learned from then, I did kick myself for not saying it, but at the same time, I was okay with the decision because it was nothing good that was going to come back.
Right.
So I left, went back to CU Denver to get my MBA.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I started to get my MBA. So my undergrad is in Bachelor of Fine Arts in Communication Design.
Right.
And then I went to get my MBA, and 2 years was way too long to be unemployed because, I want to go to school full time.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the discipline to go to work and then go to school. So I rushed it and got it done in a year and a half.
Holy smokes.
So they wouldn't let me take more than four classes the first semester because it's the first semester. So starting in second semester, I racked up classes as much as I could, just like I did with undergrad.
Yep.
So I took 21 credits junior and senior year to get out of there early. So I did the same thing in the MBA program. I took 3 classes over the summer, 5 classes in the fall again, and got out in a year and a half. And my emphasis was entrepreneurship because by that point I knew that I wanted to do something on my own, but just didn't know when and what it was that I was going to do on my own.
Right.
It wasn't just my parents are entrepreneurs. My father really isn't. He was forced to be one because he's an immigrant. Right? No one was going to give him a job.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to start something on his own. Same thing with your grandparents' story, right? It's not known. My mother, on the other hand, was a legit entrepreneur back in Korea. She started a pharmacy. She got into real estate development. When the society said, you're a woman, you should stay home barefoot and pregnant, she did all that shit on her own, right?
Wow.
Who got mentored by her father, who was an entrepreneur. I mean, as deep as it gets, right? So I knew that was in there. I just didn't know what I was going to do. So I figured emphasizing in entrepreneurship in the MBA was going to give me some skill sets, right? And then I competed in the business plan competition because you're supposed to, you're required to. So I wrote a business plan as a class project. It was something fun, very fluffy. And I competed, didn't expect to come in first place. It did. I still wasn't going to open it up. I was going to take that check and go to Vegas with my wife and see how long the shit was going to last. That was literally the conversation because it was $10,000. It's decent chunk.
It's not bad.
Cash. Not able to start a business, but definitely live out like, Elvis and Priscilla for the weekend in Vegas.
Absolutely.
So that's what we were going to do, and then talk to some friends. They said, yeah, how often do you get a chance like this? Because there was some publicity around it. I got some media attention. They said, why don't you try it out? Including Brian, who actually made me an offer. So he was trying to hire me in a company in Chicago. So I went through 4 or 5 rounds of interviews. Brian was really recommending me for a few different positions. And they made an offer. They were going to make a final offer when I did the final rounds of interviews. And I was staying in his place in Chicago. So after the last interview was over, we're having beer. And he goes, you're not taking this job, are you? I said, sorry, man. I think I got to go see if I can make this work. And he goes, I understand. I would have been disappointed if he would have taken this job. Not that the job would have sucked. The job would have been awesome.
Understandable.
I would work with him hand in hand, build a company.
But it wasn't what you wanted to do.
And an opportunity that he knew that I would regret. Because opportunities like that don't come around often.
No, they don't.
Right? So he took out a checkbook, wrote me a check, and it was my very first investor.
Holy smokes.
The fucking guy is awesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, so am I allowed to?
Yeah, you do whatever you want. I'm just going to make sure this is recorded. It should be. Yeah. So,
I should ask before I drop my first F-bomb.
Have you heard how I talk?
Yeah, but come on.
We'll bleep it out for LinkedIn, Instagram. You're going to get the whole fucking thing. I think about that story, and I'm working at this, I got out of the military. I went back to get my MBA, which is where we met, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, right? There's people only get their MBA for 2 reasons. They don't know what the fuck they're doing in life, or their job requires it.
Yes.
Right? And what I realized, I went and got out of the military. I helped start a CrossFit gym. Then I went to work in tech as an account manager, because during that class, I was like, I don't know that I'm cut out from the entrepreneurial cloth. My dad's an entrepreneur. My grandparents are entrepreneurs on both sides. Both grandparents are.
Okay.
So it's in my blood.
Yeah.
But in my head, I was like, mentally, I'm not built for that. Like, I need the stability.
Okay.
So I get into the account management job. First year is great.
Yeah.
And second year, I was like, I am done with people telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And then I hear a lot of your voice in my head. I hear a lot of my dad's voice. My parents being like, I don't think you're cut to sit behind a desk, Sergio. Right, wrong, or indifferent.
Sure.
In my head, I'm like, let me see what I can do.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the opportunity presented itself, right, with what I'm doing now in real estate.
Yeah.
But when those opportunities come up, like the one that you had, I think you got to take it.
Have to.
You might as well try. It's an experiment. And if it fails, go back.
Just like the post. It was yesterday?
Yeah, it was yesterday.
I mean, you're 100% right in the video you did. As long as you know what you're getting yourself into, as much as you can, right?
Yeah.
No one really knows, and no one can guarantee what's going to happen. But if you walk into a situation with eyes wide open, as much as you can, knowing at least all the things that you can screw up on. What the external factors bring you, you can expect that, you can predict that. But if you can just check the boxes and making sure that you don't screw up in the ways that you know you're capable of, and you're walking into the risky situation, identifying, assessing, and mitigating all the risks that you have power to,
Right.
then it's an experiment. Regardless of how it turns out, you're going to learn something from that. So that's not a failure, right? That's a lesson learned so that you don't make that mistake next time. But what's even more critical to me at that point, and still now, is Frankie's voice. Frank Sinatra, when he sings that song about not having too many regrets when the final curtain's there, right? So that's what I was thinking about. My daughter, my wife was pregnant with our daughter. I got all this debt from MBA.
Right.
I got the missed opportunity cause of not working for 2 years. This is the worst freaking time to start a business.
Your back's against the wall.
Absolutely. We're living in like a 500 square feet, 1-bedroom apartment with a newborn.
Pressure makes diamonds, though.
Jesus. Yes, that's true. And that one of the tipping points for me in the decision making was, I'm gonna regret this if I don't do it. So my wife and I sat down and go, all right, if we fail at this point, we're gonna owe about $150,000 because I financed the whole thing on debt, besides the check that Brian cut me, right? And I knew what the salary offer was in Chicago, and I knew what I was capable of. So I figured it will take me about 3 to 4 years. We'll have to really tighten our belt, but we can pay everybody back. So even if I fall flat on my face, we can pay everything back. So that's when I decided, yeah, I'm gonna go forward with this, because I identified the financial risks, and I had a way of making it work and paying everyone back, even if I fell on my face.
So before you even jumped into entrepreneurship, you obviously did a lot of analysis, which you just talked about. Were there things that, as you're thinking through these things, right, like all did you go to the worst case scenario?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's important, as if you're going to become an entrepreneur, start your own business, or go out on your own, in your opinion, do you think it's important to play out that worst case scenario so that you understand where you could possibly go?
Yes, but that worst case scenario, before I filed bankruptcy in 2017, there was only one way of doing worst case scenario. I realized then, and since then, there's actually 2 different ones you gotta do. The one that we usually do as entrepreneurs, that we teach on and we speak on, is a worst case scenario that your worst imagination would allow you to create. So typically the worst case scenarios that we create and write down are the stuff that we're gonna screw up.
It's almost, writing those things down almost creates something for you to trip on.
No, yes and
Is
no.
that what you're saying? Okay.
So it is still important to do that, because you need to know in how many ways you can possibly screw up and make sure you don't, right? So that worst case scenario is valid. You still need to do that.
Okay.
What's been missing until I failed that I didn't realize is true worst case scenarios come from external factors.
Things you can't control.
Things your imagination will not allow you to even think of.
Because you haven't been exposed to it.
No. Because what caused, ultimately, the root cause of me failing was a dishonest building owner who gave me a lease, a commercial lease to a property that building department deemed unsafe. Whereas a tenant, I couldn't go get a tenant's improvement permit. This was after I signed the lease and notified the existing, the landlord of the existing space that I was in to say, I'm moving out, find somebody else. And they did in a matter of days, because it was a popular spot right up the block from here, right? So I've signed the lease, I'm a month and a half in already. I've gotten architectural plans. I go to the building department to get a tenant's improvement permit, and they're saying, this building is deemed unsound and unsafe. There's nothing you can do as a tenant. Your building owner's got to bring everything up to code. I go back to the landlord and go, what's up with this? And she just gives me some bullshit about how the building department doesn't like that. So she plays dumb. I'm caught. I gotta move out of my space. Sign the lease to a building that I can't do anything with. Now I gotta find another property. I mean, you know how it is. It's impossible to find a commercial property that quickly, right?
It is.
I had my budget set. I had all that shit done, and I'm facing literally, at that point, 2 months where I got to figure out how to pack up and either shut down my business that was thriving at the time and profitable, or I had to figure out something else, right? Dealing with a dishonest building owner was not in my worst case scenario.
You can't, there is no way you can plan for that.
No. So the true worst case scenario isn't the worst case scenario, is actually training your mindset to go, regardless where the punches are coming from, because they'll come, right? The kicks are coming, the tackles are coming, whatever. Are you going to be ready in your mindset to get up and do whatever it takes to make it work? You don't know what's coming. Only thing you can make sure in this scenario is, are you able to make this work, regardless of what it is? So it's that mindset, it's the grit and the hustle, which I had. Because, thank you. Appreciate that. So when that shit happened, about 10 clients of mine drove up right here on Platt Street with their trucks and SUVs, because I also rented a U-Haul truck, but it wasn't enough. And after 80 years of being in business, a retail business, they helped me move all their shit into my garage. And then for the next 419 days, I had to run a retail service and products business that's brick and mortar by design, virtually. I camped part of my business in the CU Denver Business School, the conference room. I ran my business out of there. And I had to park some of the service business at another salon in Highlands.
Yeah.
And I ran there for 419 days, trying to do what I needed to do until we moved into the new space. But by then, what happens typically, doing whatever it takes comes with a price, because you got a blinders on, right? So I did what I could, what I needed to, because I wasn't gonna let some dishonest building owner cause me to fail, which meant my $20,000, $30,000 budget that I had for the tenancy improvement went to nearly $200,000. I didn't have it, but that's what it ended up costing me to renovate a space that was an empty shell. The original strategy wasn't to go into an empty shell and finish the space out. I didn't have that kind of money. The original strategy was to walk into a building that was finished and do modifications, which was a lot cheaper, because I was going to do all the work anyway, because I did that in the first place. But when you have the blinders on, I'm going, I got to do whatever it takes, never give up, it's a dangerous one.
So when you get to the point of survival, right, because there's the natural hierarchy of, I'm not even going to try it, I'll butcher it. But when you're in survival mode, the very bottom, you're trying to just put food on the table, pay the bills, take care of your family. Your blind spots, I mean, your vision of, like, your full court vision probably goes from here to here. And when you go here, everything else falls and you're not even seeing what's about to happen. You're not seeing, as a good businessman or a good entrepreneur, you're not playing chess anymore, you're playing checkers. You're looking at the next move, not the seventh move, because you can't.
You can't.
Interesting.
I had one friend, he's a client and a friend, Joe Fuyuno, very smart guy. He was the only one during those 419 days who sat me down and go, now's the time to shut it down. Don't do it. I said, what are you talking about? I got guys waiting out there. I got clients waiting. I got to open up. He's like, no. Now's the time for you to shut it down and walk away. I didn't listen. One guy. I'm sure there were others who thought it, but they didn't have the heart or the balls to tell me, because they were afraid they were going to crush my spirit.
I mean, that's a fine line to walk, crushing somebody's dream, and then being forthright with them about maybe they're not seeing something.
Exactly.
And I see that a lot with a lot of my friends who are in, honestly, just like shitty relationships. Yeah. It's like, how do you tell somebody to be like, I know what's about to happen. Deep down, you know what's about to happen, and yet you're letting it happen.
Yep.
Or the same thing with, I see some of my friends who want to, how do I say this? They want to start their own business. Sure. And honestly, I believe that anybody can do that.
Absolutely.
But what I don't believe is that they fully understand what it takes to do it. The sacrifices it takes.
Absolutely.
Because it affects everything.
Absolutely. I mean, it's no different than parenting. It really isn't. I mean, the baby doesn't come with a manual. You can watch all the freaking YouTube channels, videos you want. You can read all the books you want. Same thing with entrepreneurship, right? There is no shortage of books and schmucks on YouTube channels talking about how to start a business and all this stuff. The resources are there, right? The knowledge is there. The information is there. What's missing is you haven't walked in those shoes. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into.
Until you're there.
Absolutely. Which means, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, right? You should. If that's where your heart is and your head is, you should. But you got to get into it with the right mindset, knowing you have no idea what kind of shitstorm you're creating. So regardless of what shitstorm you're going to face, you're going to weather it. And you're going to push through it. And you're going to make it work until that day comes when you have to cut your losses and go, this is where the hard stop is. We don't talk enough about that in entrepreneurship. It's all about the grit and the perseverance. You got to hustle. You got to push through. Don't give up. Don't give up until when? until you drop dead. Right? I shared this with your father too the other day, because he and I shared the same thing. We talked about how you don't give up and you push through until you come to a point when you go, this is it, no more. Every person has to have that line, professional or personal, right? There has to be a line drawn in the sand. No one else can draw that for you except for yourself to go, this is where I stop, no more. It's got to be there. And I was watching this History Channel thing that talked about foods that made America. The founder of Hershey's company, the chocolate company, right? Obviously very successful. He had a falling out with his son at the time. So his son quit the company, went to Europe, wanted to do his own thing. And I forget his first name, but the founder of Hershey's dropped that at 51. 51. He had a conglomerate. He had a greatly successful business that even the Great Depression didn't impact, right? He dropped that at 51 of a massive heart attack. His son was in Europe. They weren't speaking anymore. For what? So you and I can enjoy cookies and creams? Where does that even matter when you can't even have a relationship with your own son because of the sake of the business? When you are compromising your freaking life for the sake of a corporate brand and a company you're building, and your son is not even there at your own funeral, where does that work?
I thought about that. I think about that a lot, and what I try and do is every 6 months, maybe a little longer, I always check in with Lizzie. I feel great. Like I love what I'm doing. I can push. But none of that means anything if the people who love me the most are like, we don't know who you are.
Yeah.
We don't want to be around you. You're not, you're an asshole, or you're not showing up the way you need to show up in these relationships. And so that's my line. If I'm past, and that's the line I have now. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of other lines as I continue to grow and expand and do different things.
Right.
But my line right now in the sand is if Lizzie or my parents or my sister or my closest friends are like, we don't know you anymore.
Yeah.
It's time for me to look in the mirror.
Absolutely.
But that also gives me a chance at the end of every day to really reflect and be like, did I show up in this job, in this life, in these relationships the way I wanted to show up? And right now, that's my line.
Right.
But nobody, and I hadn't thought about that until you just mentioned, like, this is the stuff that people don't talk about. These are the things that are very real in entrepreneurship, that it's the dark side of it all.
It is. And people suffer from it, right? So divorce rates higher amongst entrepreneurs. Why? Just the way my wife put it, right before my son was born, because we had a 6-year break, right? We had our daughter. It was traumatic for my wife. So when she said, I'm done having kids, even though we had originally agreed on 2, I said, I respect that. Things changed. We came to an agreement, a little bit of begging from my end to have another one. And right before the son was born, my wife sent me down and said, listen, you bring nothing home except piss and vinegar. You're 100% consumed in the business.
Yeah.
Because I was home like half a day a week. This whole time, my daughter was there, but I wasn't there, right? My daughter and my business were born in the same year. But I gave it all to my business and not my daughter, right? So my wife said, whatever you got to do, this kid deserves a father.
Yeah.
And knowing the less than great relationship I have with my own father, my wife said, this means a whole nother thing now, being a father to a son. So you got to take this very seriously. So you have to figure out a different way to be present in this kid's life and in our lives.
Yeah.
Right? And there was a real kick in the butt from my wife, who's going through the sacrifice at age 40 to have me another kid, right? And here I am looking at how I spent the last 6 years being absent from my wife's daily life, my daughter's daily life, my parents' daily lives, going, yeah, something's got to give. So I did. I made it work, which meant, unfortunately, sleeping less. Right? There's only so many hours in a day.
Right.
So you got to try to also cram all that in, and people talk about that now. Well, you got to figure out how to manage the time. Yes, but are you managing things that are on your plate without assessing why they're on your plate in the first place?
Are they real obligations, or are they just on your calendar?
Absolutely, right? Because there's no point of managing shit if there's shit. First, assess the shit. Is it your shit? Is it somebody else's shit?
Yeah.
Are they putting burdens on you? Are these things that you absolutely must be doing? Or are you doing it because somebody else wants you to do? Or are you simply doing it because you're not even asking yourself that question? So I did that for a while, and obviously it backfired.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
But the important lesson through all that is that line. And that line would evolve, right? Not change, evolve. Based on the phase of life that you're in, right? Right now, you're a son, your brother, your fiance, and a friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Soon you're gonna add something else to that. We don't know how soon, but it will happen.
I know it's a lot sooner in my parents' cards than it is in my cards,
of course.
but it's coming.
It's coming. So your title of fiance is gonna evolve to a husband,
mm-hmm.
which is a completely different card than a fiance.
Absolutely.
Right? Because fiance, you still have a way out. Husband, not really. Then you're gonna be a father, which is a title that you will never ever shed. That's for life.
Mm-hmm.
That's for the rest of your life, right? So then the line has to evolve, not change. The line is gonna move because everything else is evolving in life, right? So when it does, you're gonna have more things. So you're gonna go, you know what? Thank you, but no thank you.
And I've seen that. I have one of my friends, Allie, we'll get a shout out on this. Allie just had her second child, and she's also in real estate. And I sent her a message the other day. I was like, "Hey, how you doing? Like, how's business? Just checking in." And her response was, she's just focusing on her kids right now. And it's not that she is great at what she does, and she is, she's always posting. She does so many great things, but like that line has changed for her.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and I was like, that line's going to change for me too. And that was a very quick realization for me, where I was like, oh, my biggest evolutions, my biggest adaptations haven't even happened yet. Right?
Absolutely.
So like me running my business as an entrepreneur, this is the easiest I'll ever have it.
You're absolutely right.
It's only going to get harder.
Absolutely.
And the risk is only going to get higher.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so then at that point, and I think that's one of the questions I want to ask, is like, as one of the biggest lessons as an entrepreneur, because you've been doing this, is just knowing that that's going to change, and you have to adapt. Just like you have to adapt to different markets and adapt to different disruptions, you have to adapt to your life as well. Because if you don't, right, that holistic person, business owner, a father, son, all those terms, if you don't adapt, it crumbles.
It does. It does. So two of the guys that they graduated from the MBA program a couple of years before I did, and they're a little further ahead than I am in the entrepreneurship. They're very successful guys. Three of us got together back in late 2000, and one of the things that we were talking about was, can we find somebody who didn't have any silver spoons, toothpicks, chopsticks, whatever, where they made it on their own, right? Truly on their own. And two, there's not happily, just simply married to their original spouse. Contently. We're not even asking for happiness. Are you still married to your original spouse? Do they have grown children that like them? Not love them, because you're supposed to, but like them. Do they choose to take time out of their busy schedule to spend quality moments with their fathers, right? We couldn't come up with a single one. Not a single person we knew in our network had all three. So we knew guys that were very successful, made it on their own, but they're on to their third wives. Or very successful, still married to the first wife, but their children hate them. There was always something that was compromised.
You don't have all three.
And I don't think that's a lot to ask for. That's not to say that if you're in a terrible relationship that you shouldn't get divorced.
Right.
The point is, are you in a relationship with someone that you truly care about, and is it working, right, mutually? That's the point that we're driving at, because one of the guys was divorced. But are you in a marriage that is healthy? Are you in a relationship with your children that's healthy? And have you built something on your own? right? So we looked at those three things and we couldn't find any. Recently met a guy. He told me his father has all three. So I said, I would love an intro because I haven't met one yet.
Mm-hmm. Makes me think about my dad.
He's damn close.
He is very close. And this is probably his fourth business that he started.
Wow.
He owned a bar down in Texas.
Yeah.
Failed miserably. He was engaged before. That relationship failed. He has built his own thing. He hasn't, as far as I know, he hasn't received any funding from anybody. He's built it on his own. He's been married to my mom for almost 40 years, 39 years.
Wow.
I love him. I know my sister does.
There you go. Then he's there.
But with that said, there's been times
Yeah.
where I know for a fact that my parents had a tough time. So, right, he's never had all three at once. They've also had very hard times financially. So
Sure.
it's recent success, but I wouldn't call it long-term success, which I commend him for that because it's very impressive.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned earlier, like my dad and I, we've gone in and out, we've gone in flux.
Sure.
So in this current moment, in this current snapshot, yes, he does have it all. And I think people do, but that can change like that.
Oh, absolutely.
It can, before you know it, you work too many hours, too long, you don't see your wife, she's upset, right? Like things could change very quickly.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. And I'm glad you brought that to my attention because I'm here to break the mold. That to me is motivation to make sure I have my priorities set and know where my line is,
Right.
so that I can maintain those relationships
Absolutely.
and also build my business.
Absolutely. Now, and the only reason why I say your dad was damn close was because I don't know how your sister feels.
Great
Never
question.
met her, right? I know how you feel.
Yeah.
So if you, as you just did, vouched that your sister likes him as well, right? And that's not for him to say, right? You and I cannot say we're good fiancés or husbands. Only the women in our lives can say that. Same thing as to whether I'm a good father or not. Only my children would judge that. But it's not the same for everyone in that maybe for some people, relationship don't matter as much. And it's the business that's the only thing that matters. And good for them. If they're 100% sure. As long as they ain't gonna be sitting around by themselves at some point, right? And their lady is going, shit, this is not it. Because that's it. At the end of the day, do you know what you think you're gonna want? And that's gonna evolve, right? But it has to be something that's deeper than superficial bullshit. To go, regardless of what happens, my priority is not my priorities, right? So as we just talked, out of those three things, you and I are clear, right? It's relationship first before success in business.
Absolutely.
And even in the relationship, I don't think my wife would enjoy hearing this, I'm a father first. Marriage is conditional. Being a father isn't, right? There's only one conditional love in the world between humans, which is parent to a child. That's it. Sure, there's unconditional love from dog to the master. There's that.
Right.
But amongst humans, there's only one, right? So to me, my priority is father first, husband second. Then obviously I'm a son to my mother. So sometimes my wife, bless her heart, she allows me to swap those where I'm a father and then son first, then a husband, right? Those two things I gotta manage carefully because I don't know how many years my mother's got left. For that matter, I don't know how many years I got left or my wife does either, but if everything stays the way it's supposed to, my mother's gonna go first, which means I have limited years left, right? So my wife allows me to put son first before being a husband. And I'm very thankful and I'm very blessed for that because there are times when I'm spending time with my mother. 4 nights a week, I'm having dinner at my mother's. 4 nights a week. Some wives will scream and curse and yell about that. But she understands because that's the genuine time when my mother and I are sharing love, right? She's feeding me love and I'm returning the love by asking for seconds. So I take pictures of all majority of my mother's meals, and she's always, "What are you taking pictures for? Eat already. It's getting cold." But I want to capture it.
Yeah.
Because at some point, she ain't gonna be around, and I'm not gonna have those.
Do you mark those moments on your calendar as joyful, happiness, and fulfillment? Like, which one of those?
If I'm not having a good conversation with my mother, but I'm loving the food,
Yeah.
that's a fulfillment,
Okay.
right? Because I am fulfilling her
Yeah.
by eating her food. If we're having a great conversation and enjoying the food, that's happiness. That's
You know why
pure
I'm
happiness.
asking this question.
Oh
don't
yeah,
you? Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
All of this has just been incredible. This is way better than I thought it was going to be.
Oh shit!
I had no idea.
Good.
Yeah. So when you started, would you call this your new venture? What would you call what you're doing right now?
Technically, it's my new venture.
Okay, so this as your
Yeah.
new venture called Life ROI.
Mm-hmm.
I feel very honored. Me and my father got to be part of the inaugural class.
Appreciate it.
It was 6 weeks. It was incredible.
Thank you.
Tell me a little bit about that and kind of what it is, where you see it going.
So technically, it is a venture because it's a business.
Right.
I don't want to confuse that it's my passion work, therefore I'm going to do it as a nonprofit. I think there is a possibility, and it should always be a possibility, to follow your passion and still make money doing that. So the Life ROI concept came from one being that I'm an entrepreneur and a business person and a strategist that always get to see a return on investment in things, right? And to me, I couldn't find meaningful equations, protocols, framework, strategy, you name it, that would effectively measure while you're still alive, whether you're working towards the kind of life that you think you want. Now, obviously, in your father's line of work and financial advisors, they have those financial equations.
Mm-hmm.
But the number one presumptions that they make based on those equations is when you finally retire, whenever that is, money will be there for you. What if you drop that today? So all these commercials about you could start that business today, we finally have the money. What if you drop that the day before that commercial? You got nothing. You're saving all this money for what? So after I had a near-death experience, I couldn't wait. I couldn't afford to wait. I always thought I was going to check out at 60 because all the men on my father's side of the family dropped that before 60 or right at 60. My father was the only outlier, right? He lived until he was 72. What if I'm not blessed like he is and I'm not an outlier, right? So I always thought I'll drop that at 60, which means I have 12 years left. It's not a whole lot of time. So how do I make this shit count? Knowing that I may not even have 12 years based on what happened to me, there was a near-death experience, I realized tomorrow is not guaranteed. So if tomorrow is not guaranteed, what are the investments that I'm making today intentionally to experience the things that I want to experience? And then I have to go back and go, what is it that I want to experience then? Yeah, sure, I want to be happy. What the fuck does that mean? How am I happy? What makes me happy? When's the last time I was happy? It was a really hard question to ask and answer. But you don't keep track of this shit, right? So, and that's the part of the 360, trying to get an understanding of the shit show that you led, right? The life that you led, and just looking at it from a different perspective. And that's where the strategic consulting eye comes in to go, what's the root cause of whether it was positive or negative? Let's identify and assess the symptomatic evidences, but let's not make decisions on those symptomatic evidences. Let's figure out what the root causes are. Why are we making the same mistakes over and over and wondering why this keeps happening to me from a very reactive, passive perspective? Versus, same thing happened 2 years ago. Why was that? What were the contributing factors, right? The root causes. And also, when was the last time I was happy? And what caused that? What happened? Because I want to repeat that as much as I can.
Absolutely.
Right?
We all do.
Absolutely. So that's the process I went through on my own. Just like the first business plan I wrote for the business, I wrote it because I needed it and wanted it. Sample of one. I figured, yeah, I want it. That's not a reason to start a business, by the way. You still got to do your market research. For this round, I wanted it, I needed it, and I couldn't find anything out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you know what? At the minimum, I need it, so I'm going to build something and see if it works. And then that's when good people like you in my life, I just simply tested it to go, hey, are you keeping up? Are you worried about these things? Do these things keep you up at night? Would you like something like this? What worries you? What stresses you out? What makes you happy? And having enough of those conversations, I realized there is a market for this. That there are people who genuinely want to help themselves, but not by drinking someone else's Kool-Aid.
Nope.
Not by simply adapting someone else's Bible and follow to be something like they are, but figuring it out on their own, which is much harder to do, right? Especially in this society and culture where we want immediate satisfactions. Right?
Well, we talked about that earlier, right? There's plenty of knowledge and information out there for you to read. You can't figure it out until you take action. That's going to be the fastest way to figure out what makes you happy or what is fulfilled.
Absolutely. And by taking action, you're owning it.
It's yours.
Right? It's yours. Now, which comes with baggages that some people run away from. Because when you own it, it's your shit. Which means you don't get to point fingers at somebody and go, it's your fault. Right? I read your book. It's not helping me. It's your fault.
Personally, I would rather be that way. I would rather be able to point at myself and be like, oh, you get to fix this, versus being like, oh, well, that book didn't help me, so I have to go find another book.
But you know how people are.
Oh,
right?
100%.
So
Nobody wants to take blame.
no.
Everybody else wants to point at somebody else.
And that's what drives me nuts. So what I'm doing is not for everyone. It is not. I'm not trying to be like Tony Robbins or Gary V's of the world. They're very successful on their own, and God bless them. I want to do something on my own that works for me. And what I built was a framework. It is a framework. It's got enough holes and negative spaces and voids in there that was intentionally designed that way. So whoever takes the framework can fill in the blanks with their own crap, with their own thoughts, their aspirations, their fears, whatever it is that they want. Mm-hmm. So it becomes theirs. I don't want a single person, I say this in class at SU Denver, and not every student likes that because they want a template, right? They want exactly outline step by step what needs to be done. What do you learn from that? You don't learn shit, right? You learn how to follow orders and memorize crap. That's not to say that's what we do at CU Denver, but that's how majority of the education system is designed.
Correct.
So at least what I get to do now is this is going to be your shit. You're going to own it. My role is to be a Sherpa, not because I'm a brown-skinned Asian guy, right? But my role as a Sherpa is every morning I'm going to wake up and wake you up out of that tent and go, based on the external factors today, here are 3 best routes. Nothing is guaranteed, but based on my knowledge, I'm going to recommend these 3 routes. You're going to take your own risk. I'll be there side by side, right? I'll help you guide it. And if you're tired, I'll take your backpack off and I'll carry it for you for a little bit, not forever, right? You're going to own your own shit. And I'll point out the landmines and the holes and the rocks. You still have to jump over it or walk around it. It's your responsibility. But my job is to be a Sherpa, to advise and guide. At the end of the day, it's your framework. And to me, that's what helps me because I have an issue with authority, just like you do. You tell me what to do, I'm going to go, why?
Fair question.
Yeah. Is it the best way of doing it? Really? Where's the data? Right? Show me how that is the best way. And if you can prove it, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. But you're going to have to prove that shit. So that's why I don't want to be a hypocrite and tell people my way works. Nah, my way works for me. So take it and make it work for you. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But it's got enough framework and a structure to it where it's not some guy sitting around thinking this is how you should live your life. But and yet it's got enough flexibility and void and negative space in it where you're going to make it and turn it into yours.
Absolutely.
And my goal is to not walk around and say, use my way. My goal is to walk around and hear a bunch of people that are saying, I got my way. And that's what I want to hear.
And I can personally attest to that, right? So I've not only sat in where we met at CU Denver for personal branding, which we'll have to talk about at another time. because I think that's a whole
Yeah.
great topic. But I can say that in 2015, and I just posted about it this morning,
Saw that.
one of the hardest years of my life. And I can honestly say that you took my backpack for me. And you helped create a framework. And over the last 5 years of this friendship, as a mentor, as a friend, right, you've really kind of helped me create this framework. And I experienced it again when I took the Life ROI class earlier this year with my dad. And it helped me continue to evolve my line, adapt, and create a framework that's fitting where I am in my life now, in a relationship, a long-term relationship that's going to soon be my wife. And it has me thinking of different things and really taking perspective from different people. And so that framework for me was super helpful. And it helped me grow closer with my dad. It helped me grow closer with people in my life. And it's given me something tangible. To your point, that's not like it's this way or this way. It's like you get to pick. And if it doesn't work, just realize that's okay. We can adapt and kind of address it. But it was so helpful. And it really was. And like, I mean, I've told you this, and I want to capture this. Like, you changed the trajectory of my life, right? And things were shady and dark there for a little bit, and I feel like I'm on a path to where at least I have some direction and some clarity, and I really do attest that to a lot of the work that you've done to help me. So the life, So the Life ROI class that you had one.
Yeah.
You had your first one. When's going to be your next one, and how can people find that?
So it's going to be the first quarter of next year.
Okay.
And I still haven't decided exactly when, other than the first quarter, because in the next month, in this month actually, December, naturally people's going to go through a reflective mode, right? We're going to look back at the year and go, where did 2019 go? What sucked? What wasn't? What was good? And they're going to naturally get into the mode of reflection. And they're going to have a lot of plans and goals, like we all do. Come January, some will execute, some won't. And those who execute by February or March would stop and quit, right? So somewhere in the first quarter, I want to put it out there and go, hey, you know what you thought about at the end of 2019. You know you have plans. You didn't have to write it down. You didn't have to create a vision board. It didn't have to be official, but you know what you were thinking and feeling. How many of that are you actually doing? And are you prepared to go through 2020 just the way you did 2019, only to find yourself in December of 2020 asking the same stupid ass questions?
Yeah.
Life is too short for that.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I'm targeting. And also, I've been working my ass off on my book.
A book?
Not just because I'm some egomaniac who wants to be an author.
No, you're not.
I couldn't care less. But I realize I can't effectively do the work that I want to do if I don't have my thoughts and the shit show that goes in my head documented, so it actually makes sense, right? So one of the feedbacks that I was blessed to get from your cohort through this Life ROI seminar was that more explanation and examples and a walkthrough of some of the worksheets that we worked on in class would be helpful, right? So first I was thinking about the workbook style. Then I realized if I don't talk about why I am where I am, and just as the way you started out our conversation today of how the hell did you get here? Colorado, how did you get to this country? How did you get to the 48-year-old man that you are? If I don't provide a background of the current shit show that I'm running, none of this would matter, right? So I think I shared with you and your cohort that I was going to try out the reset model.
I saw that.
Yeah. So
I watched it.
bless you. That was hard for me. I mean, you're much more natural at this than I am, being in front of a camera.
You should see how sweaty my armpits are right now, right? I'm not going to show you guys, but just know, like, every time I get on camera, I get real hot.
Well, at least it's your armpits and not your underwear like I am. So I intentionally chose isolation for 4 days. I locked myself up in a room up in Estes Park, found this awesome 104-year-old hotel up in the mountains, where I walked in and the front desk person asked, I don't know if Barb's ever going to watch this, but Barb really changed the trajectory of how I spent those 4 days. She greeted me at the door. It was freezing. I got there like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. It was dark. And she said, "So what are you here for?" Because, you got one guy that's checking in on a Friday afternoon to a hotel where mostly family come, or at least couples, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "I'm here to work on my book." She goes, "Are you an author?" I go, "No, I'm just here to work on my book. This is what I do." And I finally decided I need some time to write a book. She goes, "Oh." And then she looks at my reservation and realizes my room's directly underneath the restaurant. She goes, "That's going to be loud. Let me see what I can do." And she literally went through all the reservations and found one room that was going to be quieter than the one I was given. She didn't have to do that. She went above and beyond, right? So I go into the room, nothing fancy. I had all the things I needed, and I didn't leave that room for 2 days. I left on the second day to go get something for Barb to thank her before I check out, right? So I wrote about 40 pages, which is not a lot. But I finally got into the mode of writing because I started at, how did I get here? And I wrote about my early childhood, my young adult, and right where I left off is my second job, right? So I'm going through my entire life just so that people understand I am exactly where I am because of the things that I've went through. And what they're about to read after that, the actual framework, came from all the experiences and the failures and the challenges and the achievements that I've made and the heartaches that I had to actually experience something that could be meaningful if people would adapt it. So I'm about 45, 50 pages in now. This afternoon I'm going to go write a little bit because my goal is to finish the book or finish the verbal diarrhea into a documentation by end of the year.
That's awesome.
So that I can spend the month of January getting somebody to edit it and publish it on Amazon February 1. So I want to publish it first before I actually start the second cohort on the Life ROI. So they actually have more materials and resources than you did so that it can actually elevate and enhance their experience.
That's awesome. So where can people find you so that when the book does come out, they'll know about it?
So the best place will be my website.
Okay.
Jungpark.me, JUNGPARK.me.
Okay.
Literally, that's my personal site. And LinkedIn is what I've been using the most to push stuff out. So if people would like to connect with me through you, they know you through LinkedIn, I welcome that. But jungpark.me will be where they can find the latest information.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. I really did.
Bless you.
I mean, we've been friends for 5 years, but I mean, every time I get to hang out with you, I'm just so grateful that you're in my life. So thank you for that.
Same here. Appreciate it.
Dude, thank you. I can honestly say so far this is one of my favorite interviews I had the chance to do. And I'm so grateful that Jung took the time to sit down and be so vulnerable and share his story. I think there's a lot of lessons in there, not only from coming over as an immigrant from Korea, but the lessons growing through that and becoming an entrepreneur and growing a business and a family and trying to balance all of those together. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did having the chance to talk to him. I guarantee you he'll be back and we'll talk a little bit about personal branding on the next one. I hope you guys have an incredible day. Make today your best day yet, and I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.